Whoa, where in the frick was that? The Bears just got dominated by the 49ers. The 49ers finally play a complete game for 4 quarters on both sides of the ball. We will talk about this and what it means going forward next.
Yo, it's time to grind. With Brian on the mic, content is one of a kind. Now, welcome to my show, the BS Report, where we let the truth flow. We're breaking down the stories, shining light on the games. No fake news here, just hot takes blowing flames. The BS Report, yeah, we're keeping it tight. Bringing you the news, making it ignite. Tune in, turn it up, feel the heat rise. With Brian in the house, our takes won't be compromised. From the latest news to the hottest debates, in the BS Report, we're setting the stakes. So come along, join the ride, where Brian and his subscribers are full of Niner pride. Yo.
What is good, everybody? Welcome to the BS Report. I am Brian, your host. The 49ers just reminded us of what 49ers football is supposed to look like. Kyle Shanahan was in his bag. Brock Purdy had, I would say, one of the best games of his career. It's like Kyle Shanahan was watching and listening to all of us fans out there asking him to do the things that he did today. And, throughout this whole game, the only thing I could think of was, what the hell, Kyle? Where was this all season long? This is all we've been asking for all season long. And he finally did the things that I have been banging on the table for him to do. And it was so awesome to see. Brock Purdy played amazing. Isaac Arendo played great. He didn't dominate in the run game, but he did good enough. Brock Purdy passed the ball to Garendo. Garendo was able to get open and make plays and just be that dump off option to Purdy so that he could hit his back foot and get the ball out of his hands. He didn't have to run much. He didn't have to put himself in harm. Jawan Jennings was Jawan Jennings. But the thing that I just was banging the table for was for Kyle Shanahan to please feature George Kittle. Please. And he did it. He featured George Kittle today, and it paid off in a big way. And, I got to say, Kyle Shanahan, I've been asking you to bring out the creativity. I've been asking you to run more play action. I've been asking you to move the pocket. I've been asking you to just get the running backs that aren't Christian McCaffrey involved in the game, specifically in the passing game. And you did all of that. You were more aggressive on fourth downs. You actually put together a game plan today that, in my opinion, was dominant and genius and creative. You took it to the Bears, and all I can say to you, Kyle Shanahan, is good job. I will give you a hand, Kyle, because that is exactly what we have been asking for. That is all the people that have wanted you to lose your job, to move on, is because all of that was gone. And for one game at least, you showed us what we all believed this season could have been. And, I don't know if I'm going to allow myself, in fact, I know I'm not going to allow myself to get too excited going forward. It was one game. My biggest fear is that we're going to go Thursday against the Rams and fall back into old habits. But I'm not going to turn this into a dump on Kyle Fest. I'm not going to turn this into a doomsday or do what stats like to say and put a wet blanket on things. You know what? It was a great game. Kyle coached a great game. Sorensen coached a great game. Brock played a great game. The defensive line showed up and played a great game. With Gross Matos with 3 sacks, Leonard Floyd with 2 sacks, Malik Collins with the sack, all the pressures they were getting on Caleb. For the most part, they kept him in the pocket. Who were these guys? Where have they been? Where did this come from? Hufanga was back, and I think that was huge because Jair Brown has not been playing up to our standards. And I think Hufanga being back there, even with one hand, is a playmaker, and he just brings up the energy of that defense. And I just, man, the secondary, yeah, they gave up a couple of touchdowns. I still think, and I hate to dump on a guy because of what he's going through, but I would say that, Charvarius Ward is still not what he was, and understandable. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just stating a fact that he is not yet what he was. Um, but they still only gave up less than 150 yards passing. So it's like, I can't really come down on our corners too bad. They did what they were supposed to do. They held Caleb in check. And our linebackers and defensive line kept Caleb for the most part in the pocket. Yeah, he had a couple scrambles here and there, but for the most part, they contained him. You know, it sucks we lost Barch. He went down with a high ankle sprain. Probably going to keep him out for a few weeks to a month or more. That's actually big because he's been playing so well. But Burford stepped in and he didn't do horribly. You know, they didn't block amazing in the run game, but they blocked good enough. Especially considering the fact that they're backups and the backup to the backup. And you know, Purdy wasn't under immense pressure the whole game. Like, I know some of us with Trent being out and Banks being out and then Barch going down, we were thinking that, man, Purdy's going to be running for his life. And he wasn't. He was fine for the most part. And, the other one I got to give a lot of props to is Purdy. He was decisive. He knew what he wanted to do. He wasn't staring down receivers, pump faking to them, and then deciding not to throw to them. He hit that back foot and he let it rip. And I think a lot of it was the fact that Kyle was giving him options that were easy for the most part. He was doing a lot of play action. He was moving the pocket and play action bootlegs. And it was just like, finally, Kyle, where has this been? I know I keep saying that, but that's all I could think this whole game is, what the heck? Where has this been? 319 yards in the first half. I mean, that's as good, if not better, than anything we've done even last year. And to me, it's because Kyle did not focus on force feeding the ball to McCaffrey because he couldn't. He wasn't there. He didn't focus on just force feeding the ball to Debo. Now, I still think he did it more with Debo today than he should have. Debo did break off a couple of decent, runs and stuff like that. But for the most part, man, that stuff, it's just, he's not got it anymore. The explosion is not there anymore. And so I think a lot of those plays that he's running to Debo, I think those should be ran to Pearsall or even Jacob Cowing. Let's see what they got in those situations. But for the most part, good job, Kyle. Thank you. Finally, this was a great game. This is the first time that I've been excited watching this team all year for a complete game. I would say the last time that I was super excited to watch a game was coming out of the Jets game going into week 2, and that didn't last. So this was the first time that I've really been excited for a whole game. I went into this game today not expecting much at all. I didn't know whether we would win. I didn't know if we would lose, but I thought if we did win, we'd squeak it out. I surely did not expect us to blow them out. If you would have asked me before the game, I would have said we are more likely to get blown out than to blow them out. But, I am happy to say that I was wrong as far as this game today goes. And I'm not sitting here saying that this performance today completely changes my mind on Kyle and the direction that I think this organization needs to go, because it hasn't. Um, it's one game. It's one game, and I want to see if we can keep this going, if this can continue on beyond this game. But for this one game, for today, I just want to say, congratulations, San Francisco 49ers. You showed that you have some pride. You showed that you don't have quit. I was all for that this team had quit. This team had given up. This team had, you know, turned it in already. They were already making their travel arrangements to Cabo. And I got to say, to come out here and put a performance forward like this one, I was wrong. Obviously, they haven't quit yet. Not completely, anyways. They're still got a little bit of that fight in them. They still got a little bit of that San Francisco 49er pride in them. And, they went out there and they put out one hell of an effort. This is the first time all season where I have seen effort all over the field. I did not see any just turn like mailing in any plays. I didn't see any players that were just checked out. Not even Debo. You know, he didn't have the best performance. He had 22 receiving yards today. Um, so he didn't put up a vintage Debo day, but he didn't mail it in. He wasn't lacking effort. I think he just doesn't have it. I think his explosiveness and his athleticism is just zapped. You're going to get bursts of it from time to time in short bursts. And when I say short burst, I mean not even an entire play. You're going to get maybe 6 or 7 yards of that explosiveness, and then it's just going to fade when he gets contact. You're not going to see Debo running through guys and running over guys and dragging guys with him like he's done in the past. I think those days are gone. But man, to see this team go out there and perform like that today, my hope is that this can be the foundation of this team starting to stack some stuff. And hopefully we can go out on Thursday and put forth a similar performance. I don't expect to go out there and dominate the Rams like we dominated the Bears. But can we go out there with the same fight? Can we go out there with the same drive and the same passion and the same energy? And Kyle, can you go out there with the same just determination to prove to all your naysayers that you still have it? You know, excuse me. I think that Kyle, obviously he heard the rumors. John addressed them during the week. Um, Kyle himself addressed them in the press conference after today's game. He's hearing this stuff. He's hearing that fans are calling for him to get traded or to be fired or for him to resign. He's hearing that certain members of the media are saying that, hey, certain teams should call the 49ers and inquire about the possibility of trading for him. And, and it's not like the media members aren't saying this because they think Kyle is a washed up coach, because they think he's a bad coach or he's doing a horrible job. They're saying it because they think that it's ran its course, because, maybe it's time for a fresh start. Maybe it's time just to wipe the slate clean and start over somewhere else where he can be a little bit invigorated. And that's what they're saying. And I know Kyle's hearing this stuff. And I think what it did is it made him stop and think, okay, I'll show you. You think that I've lost this team? You think I don't got it anymore? You think my creativeness is gone? Hold my beer. And you know what? Good, great, awesome, Kyle. You know what? There's still lots of fans out there that this game hasn't changed anything. You know how many things on X I'm reading on, I've seen on TikTok people making, videos on TikTok saying, guys, it's the Bears. Guys, it's one game. And you know what? You're right. It was the Bears. But I've also seen the Bears the last 3 weeks hang in with the best of the best in this league. I've seen them go toe-to-toe with the Vikings. I've seen them go toe-to-toe with Green Bay. I've seen them go toe-to-toe with the Lions. And they've lost their last 3 games by a combined 8 points. So, it's not like we were going in there today and playing the Jaguars. You know, Caleb Williams does have a tendency to hold on the ball a little bit too long, but the growth that he has shown from the earlier parts of the season up until today's game, it's been an upward trajectory this whole season. And so you can't just sit there and throughout the week and say, you know, the Niners are going to lose to the Bears because the Bears have hung in there with Minnesota. They've hung in there with Green Bay. They've hung in there with Detroit. Caleb's playing better and better and better. They fired their coach, so they're going to have the motivation and the energy to show out for their interim coach. And so I think the Niners are going to lose. I think they're not going to be able to withstand the momentum that the Bears have going. And then when the Niners go out there and jack stomp them, turn around and say, well, it's the Bears. No, you can't have it both ways, you know? And so I didn't think that the Niners were going to win this game, not because of anything that the Bears do, but because of everything that the 49ers do, because of the way that they've been playing, the way that Kyle's been coaching, the way that the players have been putting out effort. You know, all things being equal and both teams playing to their potential, this is the outcome that would happen 100 times out of 100. If the 49ers and the Bears both play to their full potential, 100 times out of 100, this outcome happens. And so I thought the Niners were going to lose this game based on themselves. So I would say that we as 49ers fans have to be cautious. We have to have cautious optimism. You know, Kyle showed today that he still has some stuff in his bag. The players showed today that they still have fight in them. They still have that pride. You know, Purdy showed today that he's not necessarily as bad as he's been looking. You know, he didn't show that, in my opinion, he's a $60 million a year quarterback, but he's shown me that it's not definitive that he's not yet. And although I'm still leaning way towards he's not, I can't 100% say that Purdy doesn't have it in him to be that guy. Now, if I had to put my money on it and I had to bet, I would still say Purdy's not a franchise quarterback, at least by my definition. My definition of a franchise quarterback is I'll put this team on my back no matter who's on the field, and I will carry them. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, those types of guys. In my opinion, those are the four guys that are there now. I think that CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, potentially Jaden Daniels has the talent to maybe one day get there. I'm not 100% sure on Lamar because right now I would say Lamar is that today. But when Lamar ages a little bit and he starts to lose that athleticism and that explosiveness, and he has to play 100% from the pocket, is he still going to be that guy? And you know what? I got to say also, when it comes to him, his pocket presence and his passing has proved just since last season. Mount. I mean, he's really, really improved. So at the end of the day, I could end up being wrong on Lamar as well. But anyways, not to get off too far off track here. To me, Purdy is not going to be one of those guys. So when I say a franchise quarterback, that's what I'm referring to. But that doesn't mean at the right price, in the right range, like $40 million, $45 million is a stretch. But, you know, $45 million and under to pay Purdy that doesn't mean he can't win a Super Bowl because I believe he can. You can win with Purdy in that price point because that means you don't have to gut the rest of your team. That means that you can still have elite players around him at that price point. Now you're paying him $55, $60 million. That's just too much. And I don't believe he has it in him. But that topic isn't closed yet. That discussion, that book hasn't been written yet. We don't know for sure whether or not that's the case. So I'm just glad to see that Kyle is putting him in positions to go out there and show us what he can do. You know, when Kyle sets him up to be successful, when Kyle sets up the other players on this offense in the optimal positions to find success, this is what we get. But he hasn't been doing that this year. That hasn't been the case up until this point. And, I would still like to see also, you know, if we do get into a situation where, we're in a big game and Kyle's got a lead, how does he handle that going forward? Because to me, there's been a couple of things over the last week or two that has shown me and given me a little bit of optimism in Kyle Shanahan that I didn't have. You know, he admitted the other day that maybe his philosophy on defense needed a little bit of tweaking. He admitted the other day that this team isn't as good as they were. Um, and he admitted to feeling this early on. And then today he comes out and he does the things that he has been basically pushing back against all season long. And to me, is like, okay, did he do these things because he didn't have a choice because McCaffrey was out? Or did he make these changes because he's starting to have a little bit of self-awareness? Because he's starting to hold himself a little bit accountable for how the season has gone. And so I guess we won't know because McCaffrey's not coming back, but this season, unless we make a deep playoff run. And so, you know, I guess I have just the slightest, tiniest little bit of optimism that maybe Kyle is somewhat learning his lesson. Maybe he is a little bit starting to evaluate his process and his game planning and his philosophy on offense, and he is making little tweaks to it. Because you know what? If he's doing that, if Kyle's actually doing that, if he is deciding, what, I am going to feature my passing game around George Kittle and Jawan Jennings, as opposed to trying to force feed the ball to Debo and keeping George in as an extra lineman. If he's starting to make the decision that he's got to use his running backs more evenly, he's got to distribute the carries more evenly, which I don't even know if that's so much the case because it was pretty much all Guerendo until he got hurt. And then he did a little bit of Patrick Taylor, and then he did a little bit of Keyshawn Vaughn. So he did kind of mix the two of them in a little bit together. And I don't know if that was because he needed to make sure Patrick Taylor didn't get hurt because Guerendo was already hurt and he had already pulled, Brock and a lot of the starters. I don't know. I hope that if Guerendo is able to go Thursday, that he splits the carries a little bit more with Patrick Taylor. I hope they can get this new running back up to speed, the one we got off the Jets practice squad, and let's see what he's got because from my understanding, he's got a little bit of explosiveness to him as well. But the other thing I'm happy to see is that Kyle's getting these guys involved in the passing game. And before it was he would only do that with McCaffrey. And I'm happy to see that he's getting Guerendo involved in this. Guerendo was a high school wide receiver. I mean, Guerendo was the Mr. Football in his state at wide receiver. That generally goes to a running back or a quarterback, specifically usually a quarterback. He won that honor as a wide receiver. So, I would say it's exciting to see these developments on offense. And it's equally exciting to see what's going on in the defense. And I got to give Sorensen some credit here because he had his guys ready to go. He had them ready to play. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's all on the return of Hufanga. From my understanding, it looks like Greenlaw's going to play on Thursday against the Rams. I'm still not sure exactly how I feel about that. I think I would like to see maybe one more game against the Rams to see if this momentum carries forward, to see if we can keep going the way we've been going. and then get Greenlaw if we can do this again. But if he's going to play him, then he's going to play him. And you know what? Let's go. Let's go. I'm excited to see it. And so I'm hoping that the momentum that the defense got, maybe even Bosa can go next week. How huge would that be? Maybe it's a combination of Huff coming back and Gross Matos getting fully healthy, because he looks like, maybe he can be a little bit of a difference maker. Leonard Floyd seems to be picking it up a little bit. I'm encouraged. The last few weeks, Leonard Floyd has been doing better. And so I'm encouraged to think of what this defense can be once we do get Bosa back. If Greenlaw does come back, can we get back to playing dominant defense again? Can we get pressure quickly and help out our secondary, help out our corners? And if we can do these things, man, maybe we can, with a little bit of help, sneak into the playoffs. I'm not going to count on it. I'm not even going to expect it, but I am going to hope for it. And prior today, I didn't have any hope for it. And the reason why is because I really didn't think this team had this performance in them. I would not have been surprised if we lost all 5 of our remaining games going into today. But I also wouldn't have been surprised if we squeaked 1 or 2 of them out. I am beyond surprised that we won in this fashion. I in no way foreseen this coming. I honestly did not think that this specific team this year had this performance in them. And I have never been more happy to be wrong. I am just so proud of the fight and the heart that they showed today. As a 49ers fan, part of me wanted the draft position. Part of me was like, we're not going to do anything this year. We might as well just lose and get the better draft pick to build better, because it's not just a higher first round pick. It's a higher pick in every round. So it's like, man, we could be so much better if that happens. Well, part of me still feels that way. If we're going to go out and put forth this effort as a Niner fan who hates to lose, I would much rather see this, because it's not like the Niners have shown a great track record of drafting early in the first round anyways. I can still remember Mike McGlinchey, Solomon Thomas, Javon, I can still remember those picks. So, maybe it would be better for this team and the morale and the momentum going into next season if we can finish off the season on this kind of a run, regardless if we win 5 in a row, 4 or 5, however it plays out. We can go 2-3 or 3-2, as long as the fight and the effort and the pride that the team showed today continues to show, and Kyle continues to be creative and continues to put aside his stubbornness and to keep evolving the game plan the way that he did today. For one, I think finishing anything less than 4-1, if that's the case, if this team plays like they played today going forward, I would be surprised if we finished anything less than 4-1. I wouldn't be surprised if we finished 5-0. I think that this team that showed up today, especially if you add Bosa to it, especially if you add a 75% Dre Greenlaw to it, especially if Trent Williams is able to come back, I believe that this team, with those additions, can beat Detroit if they play like they played today. Now, there's no guarantee. This could be a 1-game thing. This can be they emptied the tank today. They wanted to show that they still had some heart. They wanted to show that they still had some pride. Shanahan wanted to show everybody, hey, I can do this. And they emptied the tank, and now it's gone, and now there's nothing left, and we're going to go right back to where it was. I hope not. But that's also entirely possible. I guess we're just going to have to watch and find out. So all I can say is, guys, awesome win. That was fun. That was great. I'm glad they gave us at least one of those this season. They gave us one game this year. We were able to just be cheering the whole game, all 4 quarters. You know, I seen stats put on X something like all 49ers fans are uneasy or something like that going into the second half. And I was like, preach, because as well as we played in the first half, going into the second half, I was like, oh boy, we've been here before this year. Maybe not to that level. We haven't dominated anybody like that all year long. But to where we were convincingly up, we were winning a game pretty convincingly. And then come the second half and it all fell apart. So I was fully prepared for that to happen in this game. Would not have been one bit surprised. And then the way the Bears came out in the set to start the second half, and they went on a long, methodical, what was it, 7 or 8 minute drive to start the quarter. And I was like, here we go. We lost the momentum. Like when halftime came, I was like, man, this is the worst thing that can happen to us right now is halftime. And then, like I said, then the Bears came out and they started just to methodically just drive down the field on us. And I was like, oh shit, here it is. But you know what? We dug in, we dug deep, and we didn't really leave much question at all this whole game. This was a thorough domination. And I guess if I had to say one thing, though, one thing that I would pull out of this game as a negative is Jake Moody has to go. How do you not kick it in between the 20 and the goal line? How I don't see how that even happens. You know, so for me, I mean, he just looks, just watching him, he just looks like a guy who has no confidence. He looks rattled. And even though he didn't miss a field goal, he just does not look like the type of guy that you would have any confidence in. And I think that is a reason why Kyle went for some of the fourth downs that he went for when we were in field goal range. In fact, he was going to kick the field goal. Then he calls timeout and decides to go for it instead. I think even he's like, his confidence in Moody, I think, is wavering a little bit. And so if I had to pull one negative from this game, that would be it. Like, I think, you know, we need to replace him next season for sure. And if for some reason we do make it into the playoffs, we do go on a run and we do squeeze in, we may even need to look at what's out there for a playoff run. We might need to look into maybe picking up someone else for a playoff run, because I really do think that Moody is shook. And the great thing about a kicker is it's not like he's got to know any plays. You sign a guy off the street, he can come in that day and kick field goals. So, you know, I guess let's see how the rest of this season plays out. But if we somehow are able to squeak into these playoffs, we might need to consider a different option at kicker, because that was the only low spot of this game. Anyways, again, just want to say great game. You know, Niner gang, that was awesome. That was fun. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I know it's hard to be too optimistic. I know a lot of you guys are down on Kyle. All I would say is enjoy this one. Let's see how Thursday goes. If it goes right back to the same thing, believe me, along with other guys will be right back on here, you know, ready to pack his bags and ship him out of town. So what I would say is just enjoy this one. Let's get ready for Thursday and let's see how it goes. Go Niners.